and welcome back to my channel, where I'm going to cover the Paladin's Oath of Glory class specialization from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, providing a brief description of the subclass, as well as explain and set up the various features gained. The Paladins who follow this oath believe in one thing, that they and their companions are destined for greatness beyond their wild imagination. They train extensively and ensure the other party members are also functioning at peak performance to ensure their heroism wins out, and as a result gain the glory they firmly believe they deserve. Generally, a Paladin will have to wait till level 3 to be able to select their oath, but I will make a player who is using a Paladin character tell me what oath they will be choosing at the time they create their character. The reason is because of the nature and sacredness of a Paladin's oath. If at any point a Paladin betrays that oath, they will fall and become an oathbreaker. To better understand how that will work, I recommend you watch some of the other videos I've created around the base Paladin class, and I will be sure to place links for those videos in the description below for you. And the reason is because those videos already go over how a Paladin falls and what the process is, so I recommend you definitely watch them if you're ever curious about how that works. Before we start looking at the various tenets and features though, let's go ahead and level this Paladin up. We want to be sure that we choose the Oath of Glory here. And the first feature a Paladin acquires at level 3 is their tenet, or what they stand by and swear to. In this case, it is the Tenets of Glory, which dictate how the Paladins of the subclass will achieve the glory they so desire through action. By facing their challenges, ensuring they maintain peak physical prowess with their weapons and armor, and finally, address failings within themselves through growth. A DM is going to take note of these tenets, and will most likely pay close attention to how you play your character, as well as what you have that character do, as I have mentioned before. Failing or misrepresenting one of these tenets will potentially trigger subsequent events that might determine your Paladin's right to remain within this subclass, or be rejected and turn into an Oathbreaker. I've discussed how this process works in other videos, so I won't repeat that here again. I do recommend looking at the videos linked in the description below to gain an idea as how that process works. Another feature your character will gain is called Oath Spells of Glory, and these are the list of spells your character will gain at specific levels, and they don't count against your prepared spells list. Initially, your character will acquire the Guiding Bolt and Heroism spells, but at levels 5, 9, 13, and 17, your character will gain 2 additional spells at each of those levels. And to ensure that these spells remain separate from your selected list of spells, you're going to want to move these into their own power group. Initially, when you drag one of these spells into place, it's going to drop into your primary spells list. We want to move that, and what we want to do is we want to call this Oath Spells. And what that will do is that will move it to its own power group, and it will convert it from a spell group into a power group at the time that you do this. You'll then want to modify that particular power group and change it from a power group, or an abilities group in this case, to a spell group. And Charisma is going to be the base stat that we want to set up for all of the spells within this particular power group or spell group. You can also set these up as Charisma, but generally when you make it so that this particular ability here is Charisma, these two follow along with it. Now that this spell group is created, we want to drag in Heroism, and it will automatically add itself to that same group. Next, when we get to level 5 and we drag in, say, Enhanced Ability here, when we do so, it will create a level 2 Oath Spells group that is linked to this particular spells group. Thus, if we make changes in this particular section, if you will, of the power group configuration, they will be reflected in all linked spell groups and power groups that are tied to this level 1 Oath Spells group. Now, the last thing that we want to do before we move on is ensure that these 2 spells are prepared. And the only reason we want to do that, you don't necessarily have to prepare them, but sometimes when you're in this combat and actions configuration of your action sheet here, spells that aren't prepared won't show up in this list. Sometimes, not all the time. By ensuring that they are prepared, they will always show up. And when you go through and actually use up all of your spells, both your Oath spells and your level 1 selected spells will disappear, which is exactly what we want. The final feature your character will gain at level 3 is called Channel Divinity for Glory, which grants you 2 new divine options your character can make use of that link directly to your Channel Divinity feature, which is explained by your Sacred Oath feature, but granted to you by this feature. In this case, your character will be able to make use of the Peerless Athlete and Inspiring Smite options, each of which we will explain in a moment. But the first thing I want to do is prepare the power group we will need to be able to take these options and make them useful. So to do that, I'm going to drag Channel Divinity onto our character's action sheet. And you will see here that it will create a brand new power group. I'm then going to want to switch this mode back to group so that we get this text entry field here and call this Channel Divinity. Oops. There we go. Capital D though. There we go. And we'll deal with the extra name here in a moment. We're going to actually change it to our options here that we have here. But the reason we're going to want to do this is simply because once we actually create an effect in here, we want to ensure that everything is appropriately linked to our stats. And we want to ensure, in addition to that, that once we've got that going, this spell group will link both of these options into a single use each. So let's go ahead and actually finalize this configuration. Once you've changed the name of the power group and moved on to another text field, this icon will reappear and the name of the group will have changed. You want to click on that magnifying glass icon and then go through and ensure that it remains as abilities, but our base ability is charisma because that's what a paladin generally uses. At the same time, we want to ensure that we have one rest use here because with a paladin, your character has the ability to make use of these channel divinity options even after a short rest, not just a long rest. But because of that, your character only gets one use before they have to complete a rest, which is why we need to ensure that these two are linked to each other. So with the power group ready to go, let's go ahead and take a look at Peerless Athlete, which gives your character the ability to gain advantage on athletics and acrobatics checks for a period of 10 minutes, as well as an increased amount of weight that your character can carry, push, or drag around for those 10 minutes as well. It also gives your character the means to increase your total jump distance by another 10 feet on top of the bonuses your character stats give you. But it will still cost you your normal movement to use it. And I interpret this to mean that if your character has 30 feet of movement, then the additional 10 feet of jump distance you gain as part of this feature would use 10 feet of that movement to account for it. And the side effect is simply that instead of the usual jump distance that your character would have had without this particular option or feature, you now gain an additional 10 feet to that total distance that you can cover in that jump. To ensure that this is set up, all we need to do is change this Channel Divinity Glory option and actually call it Peerless Athlete. And that'll set this up to be able to take the effects we want to add in for this particular portion of the feature. And we do that by going ahead and right-clicking on any part of this line, select Add Action, and in this case, we want to add an effect. And then click on the magnifying glass to open that up. We're going to also call this Peerless Athlete, semicolon. And what we want to do is grant advantage on athletics and acrobatics-based checks. That means that we want to make sure that we grant advantage to skills. So it's ADV skill, colon, and then the names of the skills. So athletics in this case, comma, acrobatics would be the next one. Acrobatics. Wow, I can't type T. Acrobat. I missed batics. B-A-T. Acrobatics. There we go. My ability to spell today is horrible, apparently. Now, I've set this up to be a targeting of self because it's only going to affect your character, but we still have to put in a duration. So we want to ensure that we have 10 minutes for the total duration. When it comes to dealing with the extra 10 feet of jump movement, all you have to do is tell the DM that you get the ability to jump an additional 10 feet. So that we don't really have to set anything up here because there really isn't an effect we can add to reflect that. But let's give you an idea as to how this particular feature is going to work. So I've gone ahead and added this character to our combat tracker. And the reason why I've done that is because effects won't apply if your character's not in the combat tracker. So if I were to click this button right now, it would go through and add in the effects that we're looking for here in this particular case to our character. And we can do this without this box being open at all. Now, we should have multiple advantages, if you will, or effects, if you will, in place. I'm just going to quickly clear those out because we only need the one. Now, when I go ahead and actually roll an athletics check or an acrobatics check, I should be able to do so with advantage. Excellent. That's one's working the way that we want it to. Acrobatics is working the way that we want it to. And just for kicks, let me roll a history check. We only get one dice. Excellent. So that is linked to our particular skills that we want it to be linked to. In relation to the Inspiring Smite option, It allows you to make use of a bonus action to distribute temporary hit points to any characters you wish to do so who are within 30 feet of where your character stands. This can only happen after your character has struck a creature with the Divine Smite feature, which is a base Paladin class feature, and when activated, your character will be able to distribute 2d8 plus your character's level and temporary hit points to any number of creatures within that 30-foot reach, and that's your character's Paladin level. The way it works is that if your character has rolled a 13 and the current level was 3, then there would be a total of 16 temporary hit points that you could be able to put into place on a single character, including your own character, or that number can be split up into smaller chunks and applied to one or more characters or creatures within reach. The total number of temporary hit points distributed cannot exceed that total of 16, as per our example. Now, I'm going to cheat when it comes to setting this up. I'm going to open up this particular skill, which is really just a reflection of our Channel Divinity option here. But I'm going to drag this back into place, and the reason I'm doing that because it's going to automatically add it to this Channel Divinity group here. I am then going to rename this to Inspiring Smite and delete this particular effect because we want to use a different effect. In this particular case, we want to use a heal effect. And we want to add a new line there. Left click and hold with your left mouse button while holding the 2d8 button, 1d8 button. Right click once to get 2d8. Now we have 2d8 there. Drop it into place, and you've taken care of the 2d8 bonus hit points, or temporary hit points, if you will, right off the start. The next thing we want to do is scroll this down past level until we get to, I believe it is PAL? Yes, PAL. And what that is that represents your Paladin level, which solves the issue of matching it to your level. So we have 2d8 plus your character's level, but it isn't hit points, it's temporary hit points in this particular case. Now, unfortunately, this is only going to set things up if you want to be able to go through and lump all of the temporary hit points onto one particular character. It isn't going to be useful for distributing these temporary hit points across multiple characters. But what you can do is leave it so that your character has nothing targeted. And if you go ahead and roll, it won't apply those temporary hit points to anybody. You'll still be able to get the value that you want to go ahead and distribute, but it won't necessarily go through and allow you to directly assign these as temporary hit points. You also don't have the option to be able to adjust much in the way of temporary hit points. In fact, you can't make any modifications in the combat tracker at all unless you make a roll on something. So what you'll have to do is tell the Dungeon Master exactly how you want this value divvied up, and they can go through and distribute these temporary hit points to where you want them to go. But I foresee that the most used configuration of this, if you will be simply applying these temporary hit points to a single creature or character. Whether it's your own character or whether it's, say, one of your allies, it doesn't much matter. What you can do is simply drag and drop that onto your ally. So, for example, this ape, currently it has no temporary hit points. Now it has 18 temporary hit points. So this is essentially set up to handle that, and unfortunately I did this in the wrong feature. So let me copy this up to there to fix that, and then let's set this up to be Inspiring Smite. I did not notice that that was actually happening. But that takes care of actually setting up Channel Divinity. Now, there's the other thing that I want to point out about this is how it is linked. Because we've set up this power group to require one use before a rest, and then in this case a short rest, when you use any one of these Inspiring Smite options, the other one becomes unusable. And that's exactly how the Channel Divinity feature works for the Paladin. In order to regain the use of your Channel Divinity feature, your character needs to complete a short rest. You complete the short rest, you get it back. Next time you use Peerless Athlete, Inspiring Smite becomes unusable. At Paladin level 5, your character will now unlock the next set of spells from your Oath Spells feature. And in this case, it's going to be Enhanced Ability and Magic Weapon. All we have to do is ensure that we have exposed our Oath Spells group. In case you had it minimized, it needs to be expanded out. And then just simply drag and drop both of these spells, doesn't really matter where you drop it, but it has to be dropped on one of your Oath spells groups. Otherwise, it won't work. Now we have all of our stuff set up here, so we can enhance our abilities, or we can go through and make use of this magic weapon or set up a magic weapon. And it doesn't much matter. We've got this set up. The last thing we have to do is prepare those spells just so that they are guaranteed to show up. At Paladin level 7, your character will gain access to the Aura of Alacrity feature, which gives your character, as well as any ally who starts their turn within 5 feet of your character, an extra 10 feet of movement. In relation to your character, as long as the aura is up, they can walk 10 feet faster, but if the aura is down, your character's movement is normal. However, as this is not an active ability and it can always remain available, it makes sense to just leave it in place. And in fact, I think that's the intended idea behind it, but not always. Some DMs allow the player to toggle, quote-unquote, the state of that aura. The only other thing to really note about this aura is that once your character reaches level 18, the total distance the characters can be from your own character before they gain this benefit if they start their turn inside of that aura, if you will, it increases from a 5-foot distance from your character to 10 feet out from your character. But as this is an option or a feature, if you will, that doesn't need to be actioned in any way, shape, or form, you just need to tell the DM that you're doing it or have that capability that is there. All you have to do is just reference the information sheet and away you go. At levels 9 and 13, your character is going to gain access to their next set of Oath spells. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and drop these into place because both of these levels can be done simultaneously, and I'll just ensure that our Paladin is level 13 before I move on to the next section, because there's nothing else that happens between levels 9 and 13 in relation to your features. The only other thing I will do is ensure that each of those spells is now set up and prepared. So that's the level 3 spells group, and here are the level 4 spell group. There we go. At Paladin level 15, your character is going to gain the Glorious Defense feature that allows your character to make use of a reaction in the event an ally of yours has been struck by an attack. The reaction allows your character to temporarily increase that ally's armor class to potentially turn that hit into a miss, and the amount of AC increase is equal to your character's charisma modifier. In this particular case, that would be a +1. I can't remember why I stuck the points in wisdom as opposed to charisma, but I did, so gotta live with it. Additionally, if the attack does in fact turn from a hit into a miss, then your character can now make a single weapon attack as part of the reaction, if that attacker is within range of your weapon your character is currently using, so you won't have the time to switch out a weapon. However, this is another rule that some DMs will be lenient on, so always ask just in case. And finally, there are a limited number of uses of this feature before your character will be required to complete a long rest in order to regain those spent uses, and that number of uses is equal to your character's charisma modifier, so in this case it would be a 1 as well. And something I need to point out about that, even if your character's charisma modifier was a +3, for example, because you're making use of a reaction, your character would only be able to use this once per turn, but it would give you the ability to use it over 3 separate turns as a reaction on each of those turns. So let's quickly go ahead and add this to our character's action sheet. Now, we don't already have a power group to store this particular feature in. Interesting that there is a weapon down here. Again, I can't recall why I put that down there, but I did, I think. It's been a while since I created this character. Anyway, I want to create a brand new Oath of Glory power group here. And because I want to go through and set up an effect here to increase somebody else's armor class, I want to go through and create this as Glorious Defense, semicolon, AC colon, and then I'm going to put in CHA, and they should be all in caps. And the reason why I'm doing that is I'm telling this effect to make use of my charisma modifier. That way, if it does in fact increase over time, you don't have to worry about modifying this feature. And this will expire on the next roll. Now, in theory, this has to happen after someone has already been hit. So this isn't really going to take advantage of a particular Fantasy Grounds automatic roll or feature capability if you do it that way. So one of the things I have seen is that some dungeon masters will allow you to be able to apply this to a particular character, and it cannot be your own character. All you have to do is drag and drop it into place, and you will see that it has an AC 1. So in theory, if whoever is attacking this Ape 1 now makes their attack roll, if they miss because of that one difference within the armor class point here, then you get to make your reaction attack. However, if they still hit, or it was a miss from the start, then this was kind of a useless method of the making use of the reaction. So it's going to be entirely up to the dungeon master as to whether they accept that or not. However, in relation to a pen and paper variant of this, you will have to wait until the attack has been made before you make the additional AC increase. And if that does in fact turn into a miss, then you can make your attack. I highly recommend that dungeon masters play it the latter way, not make use of Fantasy Grounds' own automation rules. All you should really use this effect for is to be able to inform the dungeon master exactly how many points difference there is between the armor class that was attacked versus the armor class that you've given them as a bonus through your charisma modifier here. It does mean that there is a little bit of extra work involved, and in fact, once the decision has been made, whether it's a hit or a miss, you then have to go ahead and remove it, or the dungeon master will have to do that, because you don't want there in the next round when the ape gets attacked again, unless you happen to have multiple uses of this particular reaction, and you're going to go ahead and use it again anyway. Now, before I consider this done, I need to make sure I go into preparation and set this up for a single daily use. I do believe it's just a long rest. Yes, so it is just a long rest. So you want to be sure that this is a one daily use, and when you go ahead and use it, you click that pip, and it's gone until you've completed a rest. At character level 17, you're gaining access to your final oath spells. I'm just going to pop open that group and drag and drop these into place, and it will go ahead and create your 5th level oath spells group. I'm then going to ensure that these particular spells are prepared, and that will actually complete everything that we have to do in relation to oath spells. We're done with this feature. At level 18, you will have to remember that your Aura of Alacrity increases its range from 5 feet from your character to 10 feet from your character for anyone being able to take advantage of that movement bonus when they're in your aura, i.e. when they're 10 feet away from your character. But once again, you don't need to make any adjustments to your character sheet to reflect that. You just have to remember that it's there. And finally, at Paladin level 20, your character will gain the Living Legend feature, giving your character a means to turn those stories of legend into a power your character can make use of for a period of 60 seconds. As part of this feature, your character will gain advantage on all charisma checks, be able to turn a single miss during a round into a hit instead, and being able to make use of your reaction to re-roll a failed saving throw, but the new roll must be used. This feature can be used as a bonus action, but once used, your character will need to complete a long rest before regaining all spent uses, or burn a 5th level spell slot to be able to use it again. And in this particular case, you get one use before you have to start looking at burning a 5th level spell slot to be able to use it again. So, if you want to just use it once, then complete a long rest, you'll regain the use of it again. Or, if you've used it, but you have an unused spell slot that is available, you can burn that and be able to use this again. Unfortunately, the only portion of this particular feature that I can think of that we'll be able to add to our action sheet is the charisma modifier, or the charisma check, that particular advantage roll. We can't automate a miss into a hit, and we can't automatically re-roll a failed saving throw and burn a reaction because of that. These two are more or less things that you have to tell the dungeon master about, but we can set this up as a feature. I'm going to go ahead and, where's our, where did our power, oh right, our power group has disappeared because the feature we used was used. All right, so I'm going to drop Living Legend into here, set this up in the same power group, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a new effect. This effect is going to be called Living Legend. Semicolon. and you're going to be gaining advantage on charisma checks. So we want to go ADV CHECK colon charisma. Sorry, correction. It's actually CHK. So CHK. Yeah. I always forget. I'm so used to spelling it out. It also lasts for 1 minute, so it does have a duration. It doesn't expire on the next roll, but it does only apply to your character. That's really all we can do to set that up. The other thing will be setting up its use limitation. So you want to be able to set it up for 1 daily use. Now, if you do choose to use a spell slot, because you do have 2 at this particular level, all you would do, let's say it's been used, you would say, DM, I'm going to use a spell slot, tick that, look for Living Legend inside of your action sheet, under the standard group, you'll see it with a check mark in it, temporarily uncheck it, go back to combat, then check it again, and you will show a use in the chat log that you've used it again. However, it is recommended that before you actually click this check mark, you make sure that you have the effect tied to your character so that you can gain advantage on those charisma rolls. Now, let's see. We have a charisma roll here. And the way this is going to work is as follows. If you make any skill check that makes use of a charisma-based modifier, it will roll with advantage. In addition to that, if you come over here and just do a charisma check, it will roll with advantage. That is exactly what we want, and that's exactly what the intent of this particular feature is. If, however, you roll for anything that is not related to your charisma, you won't gain an advantage on that. And that completes everything that we have to do for this particular character. And Paladins of the subclass, to me, it kind of sounds like the annoying paladin everyone avoids or dislikes in all the books that I've read and movies that I've seen, but ends up being the hero in the end anyway. So they might take a meandering path to the path of glory, but they do eventually get there. They just might not necessarily have a whole lot of friends or a whole lot of people that like them by the time they get there. It's like nothing bad sticks to them, and they are always able to find their way out of a bad situation. But I myself have never played this particular subclass, so I really don't have much input to their overall effectiveness. But it certainly looks like it would be a fun subclass to definitely give a try. However, this does bring us to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful and informative, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.